I like to let the verse speak, and I like to let the verse have its own logical conclusion. He's refuting their accusation that he has children. And it's illogical for them to ascribe to him children.
Correct.
Based on the verse, why is that?
Because he does not have a spouse.
Beautiful. So, him not having a spouse makes it illogical to think that he has children because he can't have children without a spouse.
No.
I got you. Let's say I got you. Got it. There's an echo, Khalid.
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for letting me join. Okay. So I think there's two ways we can go about this. I can give you my response to your direct question, which is, or direct statement, which is Allah is not God. Or I can respond to the argument you've been making with guests about him not being able to have a son. So in such proving he's not all powerful, and in such proving that he is not God. So which direction would you prefer we take? Happy to go either way.
I'm saying that he's not God because he's not all powerful. So you can respond to the argument directly.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So let's start with your questioning. Your question was, can Allah have a son?
Yes.
My response is, Allah is all powerful, and if he chooses to have a son, he can. However, he has taught us that it is completely against his nature, completely against his majesty, and therefore it will never happen.
So based on that, having a son goes against Allah's nature, but he can do it. He can go against his nature if he wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same question. Can God make an unmovable stone? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That question in itself is a paradoxical question, right? Like I would ask you the same. Can the Christian God make an immovable stone? Because the answer, let's say you said yes, he can make an immovable stone. Your response. Go ahead.
I'll tell you how I'll answer this, okay? As a Christian, we don't believe that God can go against his nature. So we don't believe that God can contradict him. So no, the Christian God.
Sorry, say that again. God can what?
He cannot contradict his nature. So the Christian God cannot create a rock so heavy that he himself cannot lift it. That is a contradiction because he's all powerful. There's nothing he cannot lift, right? So he is consistent within his nature. He is the consistency and truth in reality, and therefore cannot contradict himself. The question within itself is a contradictory question, right? So it's not.
Exactly. And I would say, I would have that same response, right? In that God would not have a son because it contradicts his nature. What we should really be speaking about is why does it contradict his nature, and does that even make sense? That's the true conversation we should be having.
Well, this is what I ask. You have to establish that the Quran says that. So first, can you show me that the Quran says that having a son goes against his nature? Now, specifically,
there's
I'm familiar with what the Quran says, especially on this topic. So I don't want us to waste time with stuff that I know may come up. So don't bring me something that says it doesn't befit him, because something not befitting something or someone doesn't mean it goes against their nature. Like it goes against the core of their being. But befitting has to do with
that's your opinion.
Well, no,
that's an opinion.
No,
that's not a fact. That's an opinion.
No, it is. Befitting has to do with status. Like, for example, does it befit a king to sweep and mop the palace?
A king that is humble and a servant of his people, because he is a man king. Yeah, I don't see how it doesn't him.
It doesn't
But you can make
about the palace because that is the servant's job. It's not his job. Does it befit a CEO of a company to be working at the desk as a telemarketer trying to get leads for customers?
I've done it, and I own a company. And I did it to teach my people. I did it to teach my people and to show an example of how it's done. But we're not talking about people, we're talking about God, right? But let's go back to your question about what it says in the Quran, what is in.
For us to deal with this, we have to be able, bro, to deal with this stuff honestly. We can't be disingenuous about this and expect a fruitful conversation. You know what I'm saying? There's certain
so how am I being disingenuous?
I think that there are certain things that are just common sense that we both know, that I think that because of this conversation, you won't submit to certain things. Like, you and I both know that it does not befit the CEO of the company to come in Monday through Friday and work at the desk as a telemarketer.
That's true. Monday through Friday, every day, it doesn't befit him. Certain circumstances, it can, and I've explained why. Now, let's go back to your question, okay? Because I am trying to be genuine and not really trying to hold a debate. I'm trying to give you my perspective through my life growing up as a Muslim, right? And being educated on Islam, right? My perspective is this. God in the Quran says, there's a chapter in the Quran, it's called the chapter of sincerity. It's 4 short verses where God clearly defines himself to us in words that we as humans can understand, right? And that the first verse is that God is only one, i.e., there cannot be more than one God. If there were more than one God, then those beings are not God because they are matched, they have rivals, and they have individuals that might be able to overpower them. God also says in that verse, or in that chapter, he does not beget and he is not begotten, because if he were to beget a son, then that son could one day match, equal, or surpass him, and God is unsurpassable. And it's further substantiated by the third verse, the fourth verse, which clearly states, and there is nothing equal to or like him. So God very clearly defines who he is explicitly. And if he were to have a son, it would contradict the nature of the definition of God, which is he is one and only, cannot be matched, cannot have partners, and is all powerful, while everything comes to him as a slave. Further in the Quran, he states that...
Pause, not address that. So let me just go with you there. Because again, we don't have a verse where the Quran says that having a son goes against the nature of Allah. But let's go with you on that. Let me grant you that it goes against the nature of Allah. Well, Allah himself says that he can go against his own nature. He says that if he wanted to have a son, he could choose any among his creation. It's chapter 39, verse 4. So if he wanted to have a son, he could go against his nature and have a son. He would just need help to do it.
I said that he never said he needed help to do it. He never said that. So
okay, so
you're referencing a chapter, verse, right?
You're breaking up.
Yeah, you guys have discussed that today, but I don't think that guy understood. Sorry, go ahead.
You're breaking up. You got.
What were you saying?
You good now?
All right. Is this any better?
Yeah. So
is this any better?
Yeah, it's better. So
I got more than one bar now.
Yeah, good. This is where we're at now. So you've already granted that Allah could go against his nature and have a son. So going on a spiel of how having a son goes against his nature is irrelevant, since he can do it anyway. So I like that would be a waste of our time breaking down how having a son goes against his nature in in light of our argument here. Our argument is, could he do it or not? The answer is yes. Fine. My problem is that he would need help to do it. You say no. So obviously this is where 6101 comes into play. He says, how can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate?
Well, you have to understand the context in which that verse came down and who that verse was addressing. That verse was not addressing Christians, nor was it addressing Jews. It was not addressing the people of the book. That verse was addressing the polytheists of Mecca at the time. So the polytheists of Mecca at the time attributed children to God through spouses that God would have. Okay? So God is saying, hey, you're saying I have children with spouses, but I do not even have a spouse. Okay? Another thing that you also have to be clear about if we want to be genuine is that verses come down in a context, and they come down, especially in the Quran, because it was revealed over 23 years, as non-believers would spit arguments at the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. God would come down with a verse refuting their arguments. So that verse was not addressed at Christians, nor did that verse mean that God was essentially admitting that he would need a spouse to have a son. A very clear example of that is that God gave Mary Jesus, and she did not have son. Huh?
We got to deal with one thing at a time. You're saying a lot. Let's do it one thing at a time.
Okay, I'll stop there. Yeah.
Can you provide for me a reference that has the pagans saying that Allah has a spouse and had children with her?
Can I provide you a reference? From where? The Quran or from Jahiliyyah times?
Anywhere.
I'm sure I can, because I've been taught it and I've heard it, but at this moment, no.
No worries.
But if you look at the verse before, if you look at verse 6, 100, it is...
Khalid, the verse before addresses the claims of the pagans.
Polytheists, not Christians.
It addresses the claim of the pagans, and not a single time does it say that they are accusing Allah of having a partner and then having a child with that partner. The Quran doesn't say that. It just says that they're ascribing to him children. So he refutes this idea that he has children by saying he doesn't even have a spouse. How can I have a son when I don't have a mate?
Because
so
because a child, right, is a creation of God. Okay, just like he created men, he created women, he created different species of animals. He also created. What's that?
Are we the children of Allah?
No, that is in our belief. That is blasphemous. We are not the children of Allah. We are the slaves of Allah. He is the master. It's a master-slave relationship, not a father-son relationship.
Oh, we're not. So a child is not simply a creation of Allah, because we're his creation and we're not his children. So
that's not what I said.
I know. What you said is that a son would be a creation of Allah. That's what you said.
Yeah, but you didn't let me finish my point. That my point was God created, right? Just like he created men and women, he also created children, descendants of men and women. And therefore, he created the rule that for you to be the child of someone, you have to be birthed by that individual. Okay? She has to be a female that gives birth to you. Okay? Two,
how does that relate? Please.
So Adam, because it does relate to Allah, because it relates to the verse where he's making the argument, I have set the rules. I have stated that for you to be the child of someone, you must first have been given birth to by a woman, by a female. And therefore, how can I have children when I've set the rules? How can you attribute children to me when I do not have a spouse? I do not have a partner to birth that child. Because I've created that rule, not because I can't do it.
Well, no, that means he can't do it. If he's the one who
he chooses not to.
Hold on a second. If he's the one who set the rule that in order to have a child, you need a mate, so therefore he doesn't have a child because he doesn't have a mate.
But if he chose to change the rule, yes. But if he chose to change the rule, he could. There's a difference between asking what Allah is willing to do and what Allah can do.
Okay, let's deal with this directly. He says, how can I have a son when I do not have a mate? So according to his statement, what does he need in order to have a son?
No, according to his statement, based on the rules that he has created and set for us in this physical world, it is illogical for you to attribute children to him. It's a rhetorical statement.
Why? Based on the statement, based on this question, why is it illogical to attribute a child to him? Why?
But I can throw that same argument as you. Why can't we?
Please answer the question. Why is it illogical based on the question, based on the verse? Why is it illogical to attribute children to Allah? What is the reason why it's illogical based on that verse?
Why is it illogical to attribute children to Allah? Because he says that for you to be someone's child, you must first be birthed.
He doesn't say anything like that.
That's what it means. You're asking me the interpretation of the verse.
I'm not asking you to interpret anything. I'm asking you to let the verse speak for itself and to use your reasoning and logic and honesty to come to a logical conclusion based on what the verse says. You're not adding to it or interpret. No, none of that. I don't like to do that. I like to let the verse speak, and I like to let the verse have its own logical conclusion. He's refuting their accusation that he has children, and it's illogical for them to ascribe to him children. Correct. Based on the verse, why is that?
Because he does not have a spouse.
Beautiful. So him not having a spouse makes it illogical to think that he has children because he can't have children without a spouse.
No, because God would not have children. Okay, there's a difference between.
It doesn't say would not. Please, the only reason I'm cutting you off is because you're not dealing with the verse as it is. It doesn't say how would he have a son when he doesn't have a wife. It says how could.
You said
how can.
Yes, it is a rhetorical argument. Again,
it's a rebuttal. It's a refutation.
It's a refutation of what they're saying, but you cannot connect that to his inability to have children. You cannot say.
What's the point of the rebuttal? Why would Allah use a rebuttal that doesn't work? Why would he use a refutation?
It does work. For you, it doesn't work. For you, it doesn't work because it wasn't addressing you. For me,
it works. Khalid, you're missing it again. For me, it works. It's a logical refutation to people who is ascribing him children. It's a refutation saying, I can't have kids because I don't have a mate.
But you're not listening to me. I am telling you, God can do whatever he wants. He can have children, whether he has a mate or not. He can have children. I have been telling you for the past 10 minutes, he chooses not to. It's a choice, right? Just like your God could have atoned for human sin by being merciful and forgiving and not requiring that his son be tortured for that forgiveness.
Brother, so I gotta cut you off again because now you're trying to escape instead of dealing with the point here.
No. I'm not trying to escape. I'm mirroring your argument.
Please. Respectfully.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
If you're gonna mirror my argument, Khalid, if you're gonna mirror my argument, do it accurately. Don't bring up some false analogy to get away from the point being made here. Deal with the point. If you're going to bring up an analogy, I have no problem with that. Make sure it's accurate, please. So with Allah giving a refutation to these people that he has children, his refutation is, how can I have a son when I don't have a mate?
That's one of many, by the way, in the Quran. That's one of many refutations in the Quran. That's the one you're choosing to discuss today.
Is it a valid refutation?
Yeah, it's a very logical and valid refutation. My argument is not that.
Stop. So it's true then that Allah cannot have children without a mate. That's why the refutation works.
No, I do not believe that. I do not believe that, right? I believe that refutation is made, again, and I've explained it to you, and I'd like you to address the point that I'm making and not go back to the same question, if you could, okay? The point is very common sense and very simple. God states, I have set rules. My rules are X. I will not break those rules. Do I have the ability to break those rules? Absolutely. I choose not to because it does not befit my nature.
What's that? Quran.
I'm not adding to the
Quran. He never says anything about these set rules of mating and having children. He never says that.
I am pulling a logical conclusion from the statements made in the Quran, my friend.
No, you're making stuff up. You're making stuff up.
What is it that I've made up?
You're making it up that Allah has stated and set rules for how to have children. This is the only way to do it, and therefore there's no other way.
So what is there another way to do it? Is there another way to do it?
That's up to your Quran.
No, I'm asking you, is there another way to have children outside of birthing them? Is there another way to have children?
Yeah, there's adoption. There's precession.
See, but we don't believe, when you adopt someone in Islam, we don't believe they become your biological child. We're talking about biological children.
I never said that they become a biological child. They become your child, though, nonetheless. You can have children without sexual intercourse. Even Mary had a child without sexual intercourse.
But she gave birth to that child. I never brought sexual intercourse into it.
The power of God.
Correct, and I believe that, but I never brought sexual intercourse into the definition of having and I'll use biological child since you wanted to jump off into adoption.
It's all good, bro. It's all good.
You know, my last point.
Thank you for participating, because you're not really dealing with the argument anymore. Thank you for participating, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Take care.